You may have seen on the honours list this week the name Elizabeth Rata, getting a damehood for services to education. In recent years, Rata has been one of the most vocal mouthpieces for the hard right. She's tied up with New Zealand's highly lucrative lobby and think tank industry, and has been accused of using her ex-husband's last name to clout chase and protect herself from claims of anti-Māori bias. She was one of the few people who supported Seymour's Treaty Principles Bill, arguing that it was needed to reassert the authority of the 1840s hierarchy and fight against the success of decolonisation, because she felt Māori weren't capable of decision-making and self-determination. That's what she said in her submission. She was shoulder-tapped to rewrite the education curriculum that's currently removing everything from a contextual understanding of te tiriti to scary kupu Māori for new entrants. For many in education, this specific honour is a slap in the face of educators and supporters who have spent years trying to ensure our systems met the needs of everyone in the country and recognise the importance of everyone at the same time. And it's one of a number of methods of propaganda the coalition parties use to try and manipulate the public. It creates a line in the sand, an us versus them binary. It's a line that forces the public to pick a side and creates polarisation. The more people complain about Rata getting this, the more they can frame their opponents as out of touch or anti-intellectual, despite all of the many recorded instances of her punching down and trying to assimilate Māori like some kind of Borg drone from Victorian England. But when it comes to propaganda, well, it's an election year, so we can expect to see a lot of it in force. So I thought, since the coalition so kindly gave me a good example to kick off with, that I'd help you identify 10 propaganda techniques used by authoritarian regimes to shape public perception and consolidate power to watch out for this year. Like that them versus us binary argument. This method is designed to create a divide between true patriots and outgroups. They might include political opponents, migrants, Māori, the rainbow community, or woke people. This ends up turning complex issues into bullet points and shifts the way that the public approached nuanced debate. It can be really problematic in homogenizing pretty much everything. There's the ad nauseum repetition. If you get National Party MPs on your social feeds, like I do, chances are you've seen this. It's the tireless repetition of narratives and slogans. The aim here is that if they repeat the lie often enough, the public is going to end up accepting it as the truth, regardless of how inaccurate it is. And you may have seen this in action this week with the budget, or the lines like, taking credit for reducing ram raid numbers. The third thing to watch out for is an appeal to fear. Authoritarians often highlight what they consider potential catastrophic threats to stability, safety, or traditional values. It's part of the toolkit that they use to justify rushing legislation through under urgency, which this government's done on record levels. Also keep an eye out for card stacking. It's where right-wing and compliant media sort of come in hand. It's the deliberate selection and presentation of facts that support only their narrative. The budget's actually a really good example of this. It ignores broad context and negative consequences and makes a parallel world in media where highly curated reality matches the goals of the people in power. And you'll find that in a number of NZME titles and some alternative media like The Platform or Reality Check Radio. There's the name-calling and labelling, because it's easier than actually engaging with an opponent's argument. Often these are going to be dehumanizing or pejorative, and it's designed to delegitimize a person or organization rather than addressing their specific critiques. There's a method known as glittering generalities. These are the use of terms that sound impressive, but they have about as much actual value as chocolate money. Keep an eye out for terms like freedom, common sense, or national pride. They're emotive, but they don't actually have a precise definition that you can put into action. There's an issue that the coalition is going to struggle with here that's called the plain folks persona. It's by framing party leaders as ordinary people who share the same struggles that you and I do. It's meant to create a kind of false sense of identification, which hides the power disparity between those in charge and the general population. I mean, do you get to claim $1,000 a week to live in a house that you already own, or spend $45,000 to helicopter up the top of a mountain to eat pavlova for the camera, or take a limo over the road to tell people that you relate to them? This is going to be one that they struggle with. Keep an eye out as well for the gaslighting. The continued denial of established facts and shared experiences is a big one. It's what happens when MPs claim things like our energy issues come from Labour's oil and gas ban, which didn't stop ongoing extractions and no new supplies had been found in those areas for 2 decades. Or when Simeon talks about extended lockdowns that punished Aucklanders, for an extra weekend to ensure the most accurate testing data before finalised decisions were made. or that the economy is going to get back into surplus next year, as long as the oil crisis is sorted and you use the new measurement National made up to hide debt that they didn't want to count. Okay, keep an eye out as well for diversions and whataboutisms. This is a way that they're going to try and slide attention away from their failures in government. Like the record business closure numbers, the record migration numbers leaving the country, the record unemployment numbers, the record number of beneficiaries, the record number of people who are now homeless, or the record level of core crown debt. All of these are things they will try and create diversions around in the narratives that they present to the media and to the public at events. So keep pressing them on the issue specifically and don't let them distract you. This whole week has been a great example of this as the coalition MPs laud their budget. As questions about lobby pay for play, AI use in MSD and other pre-budget issues vanish from the newsfeed, while National straight up lies about getting the deficit down, before being called out on that and removing the post that claimed it. And finally, keep an eye out for the cult of personality, which to be fair is something that the coalition partners do better than National. This technique centralises a party's success around a single figure. Usually it's meant to be someone charismatic, but, you've seen the offerings, that clearly isn't always the case. But parties will frame them as superior or uniquely qualified in some way. By the way, did you know Christopher Luxon used to run an airline? And clearly that's the same as running a country. This focus on a person usually makes it harder to oppose the government without opposing this hero figure that they're trying to create. Like how ACT supporters, you can't bring up their party's former party president convicted of child sexual assault and hidden by the party during the 2023 election with the targeted successful use of name suppression without being told that wasn't David Seymour's doing. He tried to help by sending victims to an employment lawyer friend. And here's the crux, okay? Knowing the difference between propaganda and campaigning isn't always easy. They often feel really similar. But a good campaign is going to rely on logical arguments, policy proposals, and facts. It'll inform voters of goals and objectives to win support. It'll use identified and trusted sources and welcome debate and scrutiny. It'll acknowledge trade-offs are sometimes needed in a healthy democracy, and it treats you, the voter, as both autonomous and rational. Even when you disagree, especially if you can explain your perspective and reasoning. You're not a target there to be primed. So keep an eye out for surrogates that are going to parrot and push coalition talking points. That's usually your NZME titles or media being framed from government talking points. That's your alternative right-wing media like The Platform or Reality Check Radio. Keep an eye out for your bevy of astroturfs. Again, lobbyists and think tanks with no real authority, but given a pedestal and legitimized by politicians and media, or the repeated use of bullshit and half-truths as full-fledged facts and the way that they try and silence dissenting voices. And remember that unless your enrolment details are up to date by October 25, you won't get to vote this year. Because as National tried to gaslight us into believing, they claim it puts too much pressure on the system to allow votes to be counted in the time they wanted them counted, and not because it's a move that's going to impact 55,000 voters who did same-day enrolments last election that tended to skew left in their voting. So head to vote.nz to check those details, and keep an eye out for these propaganda methods that are going to pop up between now and November 7. Hello there, podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around for this extra little bit. I'm experimenting. I like how this experiment is going so far. It actually helps me kind of process a little bit what my thought processes have been and before I go in and edit stuff and put it all together. This particular episode was actually inspired by a request from somebody who works at Auckland University. I did a guest lecture for her, must have been last month, and I mentioned propaganda a few times. So she reached out going, would like to put something in the curriculum next year around propaganda. Do you have anything that you've done specifically video-wise? I'm like, I haven't actually for ages. So this seemed like a really good time to do it. And then the nominations came out, the announcement came out for, was it the King's Birthday Honours? And I saw Elizabeth Rata at the top and I'm just going, yeah, of course. That makes perfect sense, and that kind of fed into how to frame everything else around it. But it's a really fascinating topic because we, first of all, aren't really used to propaganda methodologies here in this country. We're not used to authoritarianism or populism on such a large scale. I mean, Winston Peters has been doing this for 50 years. Please, somebody, stop him. Anybody, just don't vote for his fucking party. But he's been doing this for 50 years, but we're not really used to seeing it happen the way that it happens in other countries. And we're not really used to identifying the outcomes that we see in other countries that lead us down some really dark paths. But there are signs there, and propaganda use in campaigns is actually one of them. So I wanted people to keep an eye out for it, and also to realize that You can have a disagreement around how people feel about things or see things or what their viewpoints are that make them think in a different political ideology is the way for them. Most people can justify that in some way. There are people I know, for example, who still feel that their business failed because of restrictions from the COVID era. I totally understand where they're coming from, all right? Their argument is logical in that respect. But if they're just coming and going, Jacinda, rah, that kind of thing doesn't help anybody. But that's exactly what the coalition kind of wants people to do, so they can sit there and pigeonhole them with the way that they put propaganda out there. So my ultimate aim with this video or podcast or however it is that you're ingesting this information is to give people some red flags that they can look at and go, oh, okay, yeah, no, click, I can make the connections there. It makes perfect sense. And if one or two people get that, then I am totally happy with that as an outcome. And if nobody gets that, then maybe my messaging needs to be a little bit clearer. Yeah, it's a bit strange. Anyway, thanks for checking out this podcast and this little bit extra at the end, which I'm actually really enjoying doing at the moment. Don't forget, if you haven't already, to hit that like button, share the video or podcast, or subscribe to the channel so you get updates when they come through. If you subscribe to the channel, you get notifications in the morning or in the evening going, hey, here is a new episode, so you can watch it or listen to it as you commute to work or school or wherever it is that you happen to be going. So thanks very much again for checking everything out, and I will catch you guys all next time.